Peace and Islam, we back for another installment. Got a video for every day of the month to deal with this issue of so-called African American enslavement, which really is the breaking up of the kingdoms of the Atlantic West on both sides of it. So we start right here with Spain showing you an aspect of your history. So we're gonna begin. I'm gonna do a quick video, visuals in a little bit. Let me see. Yeah, let's watch that now. Okay, with some visuals on old Morocco that we call Brazil today. I think that'd be neat the way they did that. Animated photos. But let's begin today's lesson. We're gonna start as we start always, showing you spirits. This one ain't funny. So you see the same characters, they never change. That's why you know this is a farm. I get convinced more and more. And you see, the same things we talk about, the way people speak and think, you can see by the way the words they use. Pay attention to each word. They stop using our, already assuming that him and all his people, which would include me and you who listen to this, better go how he go and think how he think. And they try to shame you like this. Stop using our proud African descendant people as if he gonna talk to Tupac himself. Cause somebody posted a mask that the American native more, and with the feds on, where we got, I gotta show that picture before. Basically, it's described as a Mayan or something like that. It looked like Tupac, so people been using that side by side. So that's what his answer to that is. Again, these people don't gotta comment. They can keep these type of things in their head, but they gonna say something. As long as you go against the Roman narrative, they gonna open up as if Rome paying them or something. And they say to fit your imaginary, assuming that everybody who ain't claiming to using the term African, basically that's all that is, because they don't know shit about Africa for the most part. So they just let the term, it's the spell of the term. This term black too. Both of those are spells because now these people can explain that shit to you. They only can use it, and if you using it enough, then you'll get popularity and stuff too, because all people under that spell. That's why you don't hear me using those buzzwords to try to get 30,000 views like Sunday to TV, because I don't care if I got 70 more in the class. That's the whole point of these videos, to teach Moorish Americans now into the future. But I see a lot of people who claim to be teaching our people, and they use the black and the African spell to galvanize them, and they still work to this day. Leading these people. What's great alphabets? Then he said Tupac ain't believing that BS, but the name Tupac is from a American noble. And I hear somebody say that. Showing you how ignorant these people are getting. Yeah, a movie called Planet of the Apes. I can't remember which Planet of the Apes, but the one when they had the apes getting smarter and the humanity getting dumber. That would be some homework to watch, because that's what's going on. People disregarding writing, reading, knowledge because of technology. So we ain't getting enough practice on those things. And we ain't thinking deeper into things no more. So the intelligence level not get high. Like this. So I'm like, you retarded motherfucker, who is you? Then he said, coming from someone who thinks this Rico Melaza, again, person claiming to be the native because of skin pale or whatever. They didn't get braids or whatever, they named Rico. You see what I said? Even though, what happened to the Spaniards? What happened to all those people? They disappeared. All these people call themselves natives now. But the number one thing to do is denationalize the Moors, because it's the land of the Moors. The Spaniards know that. They said they used to call it that. They say, coming from someone who thinks African Americans are indigenous to America, you are in no position to call anyone retarded. So that's why I always tell Moors, listen, just don't worry about people like this everywhere, spirits like this. Just study yourself, and these people will be easy. The more you learn about yourself, the dumber these people get to you. But you see, like this. He said, yeah, you're retarded too. believes someone should identify as two continents. So you already stop him at the gate. But you say African American, so that means you already don't know. Simple civics. So that's that for the day. I used that one group. I didn't even need to go nowhere else. That one group explained everything I needed for y'all to know. On a bigger scale, that's what's going on. They're just a smaller example, experiment for you to see. So let's read about this right quick. Historian Albert Weinberg considered the speech rights. The principle of natural barrier is thus concerned not with the unifying territorial features, but with those which clearly and securely separate peoples. Rivers and mountains do not separate peoples. Governments do. People do not gain their identity from the land. So you see, you can't be an African per se. You're dealing with peoples who name lands, not the other way around. Say rather the land gains identity from the people who occupy it. Germany exists because that is the place where the Germans live. Borders do not arise, and again, if Moors here, then you in Morocco just because of that simple shit right there. Germania means the land of the Germans. Mauritania means the land of the Moors. Morocco is a version of Mauritania. And you got many versions that exist on our modern day maps that we don't even know that they say land of Moors all over the world. The borders do not arise now, they just call it Little Africa or something like that. Those little keywords. Borders do not arise from land, but from the identities of the occupying nations. When Representative Ingersoll, another believer in manifest destiny, referred to political sovereignty as a consequence of the natural borders between the Anglo-Saxon and the Mauritanian races. Basically, you're saying Moors and Romans. He was making the point, and he was talking about Texas and the 13 colonies and shit. And still using those terms because he better know about somebody who just basically got knowledge of self. Basically knowledge of self. He was making the point that the Anglo-Saxon and the Mauritanians make geography. And that's why we still in the area he was talking about, the southern parts of the United States, and you know Mexico at that time and all that right there. According to where they live and not the other way around. Herodotus and his many descriptions of parts of the world define a territory according to the group of people that occupy it. I cannot help but laugh at the absurdity of all the map makers. There are plenty of them. So you see how the same thing I be doing when I be saying, just because this person is a so-called scholastic thing, they ain't like you can say, hold on, that inaccurate. I point out a word in the Webster and say that's inaccurate. Webster ain't God. Anybody can get it. They telling you, just like my man just said this now. The absurdity of these map makers. The ignorance, you can go back and point out ignorance. Who show oceans running like a river around a perfectly circular earth with Asia and Europe of the same size. He then offers to straighten out the misconception of what the earth looks like. So we ain't got to get into the rest of that. The point of this that he making is how people look at place names as a stationary thing. It ain't just a name given to that place, to that piece of the earth by man. Before the shape of that place that we call Africa and a place that we call America and Europe before it's shaped in the shape that is. They got whole different understandings because different maps will have them shaped different and have parts of each other connected. Like Gondwana. They call Gondwana in Africa that because of the ancient Gondwana map that been parts of Europe, America, and Africa still stick together and shit. And other lands that you might see no more shit. That type of ancient understanding these people got by naming that Gondwana. But again, people want to use these terms, these ambiguous terms, because they set off an emotional understanding, subconscious in you, if you dark skin, and it political, geopolitical, modern day at that. But we stuck on it because of Europeans who had come in, and that's what they were calling us to try to get rid of our ass from here, on from our own land. And have you seen these brothers like man is basically helping them with the same mind state. Even if he right, this man ain't gonna take the time to come sit with us for years going through books in groups, talking this shit, looking through this shit. He ain't been here with us, and he ain't gonna come look at nothing we got to see. Just that type of spirit. That spirit just gonna tell you he don't give a fuck. You from Africa, my nigga, and you ain't shit if you don't say that. If you don't agree. So you ain't got a plate at his table, regardless of what he's saying on Facebook. If he come around, he got a plate at the table with the rest of us. His disagreements of these things don't not make the truth of the matter is that we family. That don't change that truth, regardless of what other people saying. The blood is supreme. And we can't change that. We only can change the way we think and perspectives. But I'll be damned if I sit there and let these people keep running around probably bullying people and shit about this shit. I will tell you what it is. The way we seeing it right here. To the sightseers, they likely continue their walk up Meeting Street at an attractive thoroughfare lined with South Carolina trademark palmetto trees until it intersected with Broad Street. At this point, they could have chosen to investigate Broad Street. Meandering down that famous roadway, newcomers found themselves strolling past the elegant Mansion House Hotel, owned by renowned pastry chef Eliza, like the Queen of Carthage, Eliza Bay, like Elizabeth. Eliza Esley, and the legendary Jones Hotel, adjacent to aristocratic St. Michael Episcopal Church. While Eliza Lee and Jehu Jones were both Moors, each owned substantial real property in the city, attended prestigious white churches, and their hotels close to the laboring classes, regardless of race. So you see, you gotta understand everything back then, what they telling you, bro, the era of slavery been the same way, probably been just a little bit more harsher on everything, a little more barbaric, if you want to say that, but even mostly the same systems. So the same situations. Some people in certain status brackets, and they do the things what they do. They'll go golfing with the other Europeans, these Moors. And you got the Moors who ain't down with that. Wherever they at today, they together today. They've been together back then in that situation, in the hood, in the whatever. See, catered, but you gotta understand people will talk about them. Just like today, we getting stories right about us. We probably much know by Europeans that come by and take some pictures in the hood. Next thing you know, they got a story, written article somewhere. and they gonna write that bitch with their perspective and their words. So each own substantial property. They cater to white clientele from around the state, so they been getting their bread out of the nation and the world. Both establishments did brisk business throughout the year, and during Charleston famous Race Week, which became Black History Month, they were full to capacity. Doubling back to Middle Meeting Street, most visitors continue out towards the center of town. Those who headed in that direction soon found themselves at a city main intersection where Meeting Street crossed Calhoun. Here, the pause to gawk at Zion's Presbyterian Church began at the Anson Street Mission for enslaved persons. The church grew so rapidly that it relocated to the intersection of Calhoun and Main Street, renaming itself in the process. Housed in the largest church building in the city, Zion's congregation numbered more than 1,000 persons by 1861. And in these churches, all the baptismal records of these people getting come from Africa and shit, cause that's the church, the African Methodists. So them baptismal records gonna have that, and then they're gonna be listed as enslaved persons, cause they under the church jurisdiction, under the black codes. Northern and southern whites alike were shocked at Zion's existence. They understood that St. Michael and St. Philip Streets were elite white churches under white leadership, but that each had some well-to-do free black congregants. And that's just like today. You can see churches all over, huge-ass churches, and you'll see the congregation as so-called black and white Romans in that thing every Sunday. And they got, and you can see the cars out there on those churches. You can see they got the luxury cars when you walk past those churches now. You can see, again, it ain't never changed. And you got so-called blacks and whites, so-called dark skin and pale people. So when you get in the hood, you see them going to church. They look jazzy and fresh too, but you see mostly Moors going into the church. You don't see no Europeans going into the church in our neighborhoods. Even if they live in the neighborhood, you know, gentrification and take hold. Throughout the South, I can tell you that now. It ain't like little Africa no more. But the church scene still the same. So this 1861 is before the so-called freeing of slavery, the slave, right? Indeed, many of the city's white churches have black parishioners, both enslaved and free. And independent black churches, however, was shocking. How could white Charlestonians permit such a thing to exist after what happened at the African church and the Denmark Vesey conspiracy in 1822? And Denmark Vesey been like a Moor at that time who been trying to bring back Morocco. He be like me. They get me in though. And what get me. Basically, would call him a Moorish sovereign citizen. That's what they would call him. Now they use him at every turn. That's our African American thing. And basically, them little stories like that. I used to wonder why they keep telling me about this and that turning they got caught and get beat up. Why you tell me about them niggas? They try to scare me. Like if I get out of line, that's what happened to me. That's what that's saying to a young Moor deep in Moor towns in the South. That's what they're telling me. And I'll never forget these two brothers named Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner. And again, you see the Afrocentric brothers. They'll talk about that all the time. They talk about them two all the time, as if that's supposed to be like some kind of one day we're gonna fight against these evil white men and take our land and go back to Africa or wherever we plan on doing. But that ain't even what we talking about. That ain't what we trying to do. None of that. Oh, that probably ain't even happen. Like they already know that ain't happen over there. They not telling that. We know these people ain't telling that thing right. And it ain't even about that. Whoever say we been oppressed to that point where we gotta go and fight our way out of something. So it's an illusion. You ain't never been like they ain't never been in that position. What we gonna do is we gonna teach our children how to read and write and be masters of that. Cause that's the pain. And you know that's mightier. So you had Christian plantation, you had Morris plantations, you had the same thing you got now, municipalities and cities and towns. And the same way they used to run the town then, they run them now. So what we call enslavement and slavery, you still got the same aspect that it's telling you, just ain't a more codified. I never could have figured out either because they always say like people like him buy he get a lotto ticket and buy his way out of slavery. The way they act like the master been so harsh on these people that why would a master let the slave even win? If you win, I'd have take that from him. That might win. You see what I'm saying? So he won and used some of the money to buy his way, and he always got that story of buying their way out and shit like so they getting wages and shit. So all that, and then they get mad when Texas put that in the books. But hey, only the truth gonna set it free. Ain't no lying. Ain't no time for not lying shit. For whatever reason, you want to feel like this man been. You want to feel like a victim, and I ain't got time for that, cause I don't feel like a victim of nothing. Continue out King Street and heading for the old city, appropriately named Boundary Street. Appropriately, the more adventurous tourists cross into Charleston Neck. Incorporated into the city of Charleston in 1849, the Neck had long been the city's low-rent suburb. Limited job offers, meager wages meant that many free blacks, newly white immigrants, and slave laborers hired out to city masters by who live on their own, and temporary white residents all live in the Neck. So you see, like I just finished explaining, shit don't get explained like this. You got different situations, different peoples. These rude little shacks, back alley rooms, windowless garrets offer the only housing many people could afford. In particular, as poorly paid as most of them were, a number of the city's black workers, like free seamstress of color Sarah Blanche, were forced to live in the Neck, teeming with flimsy wooden buildings prone to fire. Lined with muddy, unpaved streets and plagued by a poor sanitary condition, the Neck was home to many an unhealthy neighborhood. Not all the city free blacks live in the Neck, however. Unlike northern cities, Charleston did not practice residential segregation as a matter of law, and free blacks had home on virtually every road in the city. Very few could be found on Main Street near the water, in the mansions inhabited by Charleston's leading white families, and many of the blacks who did dwell there was living servants. And I was walking down the street a couple of days ago. I was walking, I see a girl walk past, and she had the baby. She had a little so-called European child, so-called white. So you already know she working as an living servant. The same thing. It just ain't called living servant no more. That shit. She just signed an application or whatever kind of system they got going on. Probably some under the table money. Who the fuck knows? And then if the couple whoever hired her out beater or whatever, then they going to jail. They can't just be, you know what I'm saying? So, but back then it been different. It been a contract, and that contract they would have been doing stuff like flogging and stuff like that. The people, right, walking past us, looking at that like we still in Rome for real, just like how it been since we lose our mind, 1774. Lose our nationality. But even all again, you had more throughout this whole time knowing who it is, and still being who it is. You can't make the horse drink the water if he ain't gonna drink it. See, midway through the city, however, oh yeah, wait, let's see. If you walk through the city, you'll see a one. They talking about the battery, and that history shaky, but that's and you got the matches on the battery throughout the whole battery in one script. But the areas throughout the city where we at, it mansions all over here too. So you have malls in these mansions. And motherfuckers ain't only ones had these mansions out here. But we see here around where merchants of both races live. We got Main Street gave way to well-tenanted brick and wooden homes where artisans and merchants of the both races live. Here around Common Street lay the heart of the city's free black community. In 1861, Common Street was home to 273 free blacks, more than any other street in the city, comprised of 18% of the street's population. Occupying 23% of its dwellings, Common Street resides residents of color, Moors. These such in the black and of color, and all kind of different switch in this shit, and including members of the city's most prominent Moors family, Jeanette Bonneau, property owner, slave holder, and widow of a free black scholar. Thomas Bonneau lived here, as well did several individuals from the wealthy Westons and the Reed families. And further up Main Street near boundaries, smaller yet still respectable wooden homes were inhabited by white laborers, enslaved persons, and so-called free blacks of more modest means. Among the latter, Martha Evans, a free woman of color, so-called, and greengrocer who owned a home near Reed Street. And this book go on and on and on and on. And a less of this type of ownership today. After the war, after 1865, a lot of this get lost. And they ain't get lost. So I just using that so I won't have to explain what happened to in this video. So web of history. So I can't get sidetracked, but what I want to say. Yeah, you see how they say white laborers. They don't want to use terms with slave and stuff like that. Because the mind state, the person who write this book, I can tell that they've been sincere in their research and what they've been writing. But under the spells of how we identify in these times. So they did their best, but you can tell because you see details. You see names, dates, data. So they're getting the data and putting it out there. Name, Sarah Blanche. So they give you that, and you could be able to see that they will add opinions here what they believe based off their perspective here and there. So can't fault people for that. You can be able to put them in your own perspective. So we see comic books, the perspectives, propaganda. Been using it. So I'm saying, so we agreeing with these people, the people who don't know us at all, playing these games. Look at that. Proud, strong, and black. Old Kelly Lopkins. Propaganda against you. And then they want you to embrace, your own people want you to embrace this. And that shit coming from the people who they claim the people who they claim Nat Turner been trying to uproot, right? The same people who Nat Turner and them obviously try to murk straight up. If that's the story, try to take the thing out. Them the same people who giving them the history that they want me and the rest of these young moles out here. Chairman, I still goddamn go with. We showing these people this. Hey, that's what they call you. How y'all green? So some more. Let's go fast. I was learned before I start. Let me do something right quick. So this is what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna show you a small example of influence, hidden influence, basically captivation, which is captivity, mental and physical. So let's talk. He gonna tell a story, true story, telling. I was lured into the red movement. You see the red, right? By way of the American Negro Labor Congress. So anything you see with Negro or black, you can look at that as wrong, because for the safe bet, even if the people look like you, that's why they get you right here. One of the many front organizations, quote unquote, set up by the communists to trap the naive, unwary, unsuspected, and idealistic blacks, Negro. That's written in the 60s, so he coming from that perspective. So he gonna use the term Negro, right? The use, and again at this time, he ended up getting captivated by these people instead of the Moorish Americans who've been around at his time, the 60s. See him being the more rated, writing them thing out. The Moorish intent was around, but at the same time, to the Christian black mentality, that's voodoo to him. All that what we talking about, he ain't trying to hear it, but that's who captivate him instead of the Moors, and he would have know the truth about who he been. The use of such attractive and appealing fronts as a means of entrapment is the most important serpentine method of the Reds, like the Cincinnati Reds, right? After 2 years of political training and organizing street demonstrations, right, like we're going on now, BLM, inciting mob violence, how to fight the police, how to politically throw a brick and hide, I was ready, in my opinion, of my leaders for the top communist schools. As a secret national training school in New York City, I was given an extensive and intensive course in the theory and practice of red political warfare. As a result, this Russia at this time, now we communist China, CCP, doing the same thing. You don't see that. You don't see the plane trips to Tokyo and to get that training no more. The Chinatown base, stuff like that. You don't see that from the HBCU to the Chinatown base. As a result, I was appointed district organizer by the political bureau of the Communist Party in Buffalo, New York area, one of the vital industrial section of our city, our country. And it was in the position of district organizer that I learned to use secret codes, mail drops, organize clandestine meetings, shake police shadows, and other underground activities. At the same time, I became acquainted with the nature of communist sabotage and espionage. My zeal, training, both theoretically and practically, combined with loyalty and willingness to sacrifice. So you see, he doing all this for Rome instead of his own people. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's going on. and store up. Changed me from a novice into a dedicated red, a professional revolutionist. So you see, all that revolutionary shit that we get into our psyche and our conscious community and all that bullshit. Been fake. Like I said, been going to open up a Circle 7 and get right. But everything else more attractive because, of course, it's shiny and it's bright. It's the same thing they say that they've been giving the African kings trinkets. Stupid shit, and they've been just because they've been bright and good to them, even amazing. Those type of things, you're amazed by them dumb shit. And the fact that the Moorish American family ain't doing those type of things. Well, some will do. Use magic on you, try to invite you in, but for the most part, we really try to get this thing popping. We can't do shit by ourselves because we don't think in self, think in terms of all. So, same way they're trying to do, they're using national stuff, but these in your nation. So he climbed rapidly in the national community, the highest governing body of the Communist Party in America. Being a top Negro communist, I was placed on the National Negro Commission, an important subcommittee of the National Committee of the Communist Party. On this commission, which was created on direct orders from Moscow to facilitate the subversion of the Negro. So he facilitated subverting you in the 60s. I began to realize the full implication of how the Negro is used as a political dupe by the Kremlin hierarchy. Under the guise of the unity of black and white in the struggle, several top white communists such as James S. Allen, Elizabeth Lawson, the late Robert Barr Minor, and George Blake Charney was placed on the National Negro Commission. These white communists wielded more power than the nominal Negro heads of the commission. In a word, they were like white overseers, a bunch of Russians and foreign nationals. That's what a Democratic Party is, a bunch of foreign nationals. You got your black caucus, the same shit. Every Negro member was aware of the Kremlin, of the fact that these white overseers constituted the eyes, the ears, and the voice of the Kremlin. Moreover, these white overseers are the surest functional guarantee of the maintenance of the hierarchical authoritarian control of the Kremlin over their Negro lickspittles, directing the conspiracy among Negroes in America. Indeed, it is the white group on the National Negro Commission that holds full sway. They flatter one or two top Negroes by making them feel they are actually participating in the formulation of policy by consulting with them prior to meetings of the commission. Then these two Negroes are assigned to lay down the line to the other Negroes on the commission. The white members check to make sure they do. Their opinion of what a Negro member say at a meeting can either make or break them. Usually the Negro who is broken is accused of petty bourgeois nationalism. So you see, they're going against, they turn you against your own nationalism because you don't know who you is. You don't even know the name of that nation, what a definition of nation. The deep definition, when you dig it deep, metaphysical and physical, and those type of things, the history. So you gotta be given through somebody else, and that's what happened in this way. He said that is placing the interests of the Negro above the interests of the Communist Party. So that's how they looked at it. If you try to talk about the truth in this system, so you in Rome trying to get benefits from these communists. And this connection, I observe how white women communists are used as political prostitutes, cohabiting with high-level Negro communists in order to spy on them. So you see, they be having the so-called white wives. And that's what you want to call them cool and shit. You don't even know the situation. Them boys getting put in the situation of a honeypot. It said, though such intimate relations, these white women communists are able to elicit information pertaining to family background, sources of income, marital difficulties, arrests, convictions, opinion on communist policy, and communist leadership. So they've been spying from the inside out on y'all, on us. This information is invaluable to the red hierarchy and their relations with their Negro lickspitters. In top red circles, this is known as bedroom politics. White communist women are also used to maneuver top Negro reds in compromising positions that if revealed will result in public scandal or disgrace. So you see, seeing little honeypot shit they got going on now. And this way, the Reds make these niggas permanently subject. And so you see how dangerous that is. He worrying about a scandal or disgrace for something he did and he didn't want to come out. And they got tape of him doing that. This man is dangerous to the Moors because he willing to do anything at that point. He like trapped. If they ever consider leaving the Red Movement, and they ain't but just if they consider leaving the movement, if they speak on the secrets of the shit what's going on, like him, if they, and basically again, if they goddamn, they'll do anything. It'll be something that embarrass our whole nation. They'll do it because they're under that honey pot. Moreover, this information used to destroy the credibility of the defector should he decide to fight the Red conspiracy. So the dude who writing this, he defector. And we'll go into some more of her stuff later. But he's just showing you how stuff happened behind the scenes so much. And these guys want to talk history and talk what's going on. And they don't get into the details of none of these things. I ain't got time to be playing with people because if you gonna miss what's going on the trick, I ain't gonna make me Muslim with you. You can tell you that. You see, comic books. So even Tarzan ran into Moors because he ran into Eden. But that ain't even a real Tarzan story. Another story I just stealing from. I find out. And of course it's a Moorish story. And they make a version of a jungle or something like that, but even like a city or something that meaning to the shit, and he take that shit and use them. You see Luther, even a friend amigo of Mandrake, and that's just the story of Sir Francis Drake, who been dealing with Summerons when he come to America. That's what they call him, and then he come to America, they want Moors. Then you see the later comics, they take the fears off his head. He gotta be a black African now, cause they don't figure out like, oh shit, we've been giving him too much. Take that off his head. So we see some more Russia. They gonna go looking through Russia, cause they got the accurate depictions. Let me not watch that. So you're gonna see right here how they speak. Now that's the exact caption. It's the only caption that exists for these paintings, and stuff on behind these paintings that they ain't gonna show us though. We have to go to the castle ourselves out there in Germany. Then get them paintings and look behind them if we want to know. Cause I see them talk about something that written up behind one of these paintings in this, but they just all they doing is pointing out what they're seeing and correlating things with what they're seeing. So we see in that painting that I showed you on the last video, why it says Huagpa, based off looking at the paintings like them. Said African chocolate brown complexion in the posture of his hand is reminiscent of the African in the picture. We're gonna see both pictures. The images are similar to the shoes of the figure, a combination of feather and silk clothing with the brocade pattern, in the form of a half tropical fruit and silk ribbon hanging from a man's hat. If one picture depicts a prince, the other might present a military commander, as shown by the busigam on his left. The work of a military commander is extremely richly decorated with pearl strings and precious stone. He too stands in desolate landscape in which we see no traces of human settlement. On the back of the canvas, let's see right here, there's a description, 23763, William Lebranth, which probably refers to the restoration of the painting. The painting, we believe now, they got a date that say something around probably 1630s, something like that. But I don't think I think he's a little bit earlier than that too. So basically the same type of, you see the same type of sandals and whole thing on his leg too. There's less jewels in them. But that's what he wants. The warrior, dressed in colorful feathers, probably represent a Brazilian Indian. So you see, he's an African chocolate brother. But now they got the same type of dress now. See how you get lost in the context, because they looking at complexion. So he got to be an Indian, Brazilian Indian. The bow and arrow is a reminiscent of the weapons of the east of the Amazon. The man is probably a military commander, see, just like the other one, as evident by the ring of the headdress, same type of headdress, collar, belt, and brooches on the sandal decorated with pearl and precious stones. Indian stands in a desolate landscape. Behind him is a palm tree. That's that Brazilian tree. So you see, that's another one. They're gonna say dress in a long white feathered dress and a colorful cloak, and this the same that we see when we look at the last video where they draw the Indians of Tierra Firme in Andalusia in Spain, and they had the same long feathered dress on the woman, same one. That's a more detailed version of that. See, an Indian woman walked barefoot across the deserted brown landscape. In the background, on the left, is a kind of fortress visible. Her headdress, silk scarf fastened with a gold ribbon decorated with white pearls and precious stones, and the way the figure depicted are reminiscent of Egypt. So they seen this in the West. She's a Mameluca. Not an Indian woman, Mameluca. If you want to talk to them more, they'll tell you. Gypsy, Tigitana. Let me say Mauritania Tigitano. The almost one face depicted, face and shoulders and the body and feet profile reminiscent of the ancient Egyptian canon of depicting figures. And now that's deep, you know, chapter 47, the ancient empire of Egypt, right? In America, right? So Noble Ali, an American prophet, talking about ancient Egypt. In 1930, he had this painting, I don't think, to know that American aspect. And that's it. It was also true for this painting that only after the graphic template for it is known, it would be possible to say certainly whether an Indian or an Egyptian woman. The Brazilian Indian as a pendant figure with the inventory 235. The young beauty is extremely luxurious, dressed in silk skirts and with a cloak of colorful feathers. On her head, she has a turban-like headdress. And the name of the series now is Moors and Turks, East and the West. They ain't say not about Indians or not. They say Moors and Turks. So they calling these people Turks of the West. And the original name of the collection was Moors and Turks, Oriental and Poniental. And I think I got that translated in here. If not, I'll bring it back from the next video. The Indian woman wearing earrings with large pearls and a necklace and a bracelet made two pearl strings. The half-exposed upper body gave the depiction of an erotic touch. The barren brown landscape was overgrown with tropical vegetation, palm trees, and some sort of cacti. A short feather skirt, a feather cloak, a high feather headdress, and a necklace made of two set of pearls are also worn by the personification of the New World depicted on a copper engraving by Mathis Marion in 1631. So that's what he was talking about, 1631 for that. But I know these are a little earlier paintings. So, let's continue. By the 17th century, Jesuit missions had become a favorite target of the expeditions, slave catchers. A bandera that took place in 1620 was organized by Antonio Raposo Tavares, raided 21 Jesuit villages in the Upper Parana Valley, ultimately capturing 2,500 natives. So you see now they try to paint that painting to make them look more like the cartoon natives than Moors who've been with the Jesuit villages and shit. A bandera tactic was to set natives up against each other in order to weaken them and then to enslave both sides. You see, I always try to tell you, don't never let Rome see your hand. If Rome coming to you asking you about a more, you down with that more. I ain't care how much beef you got with that more. To them, you better be down with that more. Let them always think that the consequence gonna be a multitude of Moors rolling on that ass. So they don't know that for sure. But they gonna test that. They gonna test to see how united we is and how divided we is. All times. In 1636, the Tavares led a bandera composed of 2,000 allied Indians, 900 Mamlukos, and 69 white polistas to find precious metal and stones and to capture Indians for slaves. This expedition alone was responsible for the destruction of most of the Jesuit mission of Spanish Guyana and the enslavement of over 60,000 indigenous people. Between 1648 and 1652, Tavares and these same people that we going throughout in these stories. These same people on these encomiendas and stuff, the Moors captured and captivated. They just using terms like indigenous. They ain't using the term Africa, so I don't want you to think that we talking about other people. We talking about Moorish Americans and the Moors. We talking about dark-skinned people. Between 1640 and 1652, Tavares also led one of the biggest known expeditions from. Every time about other people too. We talking about these people too. They want, like, just like this museum, they identified us as an Indian. And this they identify him as an African, but we know better than that. They going with the complexion thing. So we got those people over here. And that's again, Moors and Turks according to the Ottoman Empire, the way they were writing this shit down. See,
to the mouth of the Amazon River, investigating many of the tributaries, including the Rio Negro, ultimately covering the distance of more than 10,000 kilometers. The expedition traveled to Aden, Quito, part of the Spanish Viceroy of Peru, and remained there for a short time. Of the 1,200 men, only who left Sao Paulo, only 60 reached their final destination in Belém. So you see that those asientos, they were trying to fulfill some of those contracts too, to get blacks or Negroes from Africa, quote unquote, and sell them in the Spanish Indies to the crown. And the Africa had been going to Belize areas deeper into South America. That's where these blacks from Africa have been coming from. In addition to capturing natives as slaves, Banderas also helped to extend the power of Portugal by expanding its control over the Brazilian interior. So going deeper into the interior, they're going into the confines of Africa on paper. And later on, plenty of Europeans come and write your story seeing that on these documents, but don't know what that really means. Also, with the exploration and settlement of this territory, the Bandeiras was discovered mineral wealth for the Portuguese, which they had been previously unable to profit from. In 1660, the Bandeiras been a bunch of these wild men and shit running around with no masters. That's what we've been calling they had no even godless. That's what they had, godless one. And the Portuguese government offered rewards to those who discovered gold and silver deposits in inner Brazil. So the Bandeira, driven by profit, ventured into the deep depths of Brazil, not only to enslave natives but also to find mines and receive government rewards. And they would get Dawson people from in the interior and bring them to the coastline, sell them on the coast. And a lot of them was got memory in their history books about coming from a faraway land like Africa. And you definitely been doing them by way of boat because you got the river systems that go all over. They tell you the tributaries, so they'll bring them out the Magdalena from all the way from Brazil. It should take a long ass time. They ain't come from across the Atlantic, but that's what all their stories gonna say. So you can't really tell them that the story ain't real. You can't say that ain't happy because they got that in their traditions. But what we can do is we can get the records and show them that we can still investigate those histories and see and get the details of it. We can stop playing with these ambiguity. So we got different more and more amalgamation and more names. The Historia Maria, see what I talk about him. The Historia Maria Leonia Chavez de Resende says the word pardo was used to classify people with partial or full Amerindian ancestry. So the words like pardo and the one we see in the last video, Caboclo, all those were things that they used to hide the Moorish Americans. They try to get them to say, oh, they mix with an indigenous quote unquote woman who ain't as dark as them, and that's where their children end up being Americans, but don't let them play with you. See, Emmanuel, natural son of Ana Carrillo, was baptized as a pardo, and Capana, several Amerindians were classified as pardos. The Amerindians John Ferreira, Joanna Rodriguez, For example, were described as freed pardo. That's a difference. A Damaso identified as a freed pardo or a native of the land. So you see the beginning statuses that moored them to the land by way of Rome. Because they already been free and moored to the land, their own country, in their own land, their own nationality, and their own timelines. According to Chavez de Vicente, the growth of the Pardo population in Brazil included descendants of American and not only those of African descent. The growth of the Pardo segment had not only to do with the descendants of African, but also the descendants of the Amerindian, in particular the Carijos and bastards included in the condition of Pardo. Most Pardos within Caribbean and northern South America historically inhabited the territories where the Spanish conquistadors imported slaves during the colonial times, such as Capitanias of Cuba, Santo Domingo, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador. And again, we just see the Banderans working in the interior of South America, away from these places. So that's what they were bringing them to the Spanish colonies and settle them, as well as the Caribbean and Pacific coast of the Viceroy of the New Granada. For example, 1887 census conducted by Spain of Puerto Rico showed Agudilla municipality as population of 16,000 with 1,300 Pardo men and 1,600 Pardo women, which with the rest classified as black or white. In Peru, Pardos or Afro-Mestizos are referred to a mixture of Spanish and Amerindian with a little Afro contribution. So they get real. They just denationalizing people, taking them out of nationhood by saying that their blood is tainted. Located exclusively along a whole coast in greater proportion between the region of Tumbes to Ica. So when people take DNA tests, this what DNA tests doing to us, giving us these false sense of what race is gens. Gens is gentile. Gentile is nationality, nationhood, customs, law. All those things come under race, but they just dealing with one aspect of what that is, which is complexion, and that's an ignorant way to do that. Because people got custom and common history and common customs. And that's how you should determine what that name gonna be for the race. The Gens. In Brazil, Pardo is a race skin color category, right? Used by the Brazilian Institution of Geography and Statistics and Brazilian censuses with historic root in the colonial period. Exactly, and he's still using the same things from that time. The United States picked it up too. The term Pardo is more commonly used to refer to mixed race Brazilians, including with varied racial ancestries. The other categories are Branco, white, Preto, black, Amarelo, yellow, meaning East Asian, and Indigena, Indigene, or indigenous person, meaning Amerindians. And I definitely ain't talking about you when they say that. That's just to denationalize Moors. If your skin too dark, then you Preto or Pardo. See? So they just use that to denationalize Moors. The term is still popular in Brazil, according to IBGE. We need to go shut that down and shut it down here first, though. Pardo is a broad classification that encompasses multiracial Brazilians such as mulattoes and confusos. In terms like confusos should tell you, like, why are you confused? as well as assimilated Amerindians known as caboclos. Yep, he's bringing that out again. Mixed with Europeans or not. The term pardo was first used in Brazilian census in 1872. The following census in 1890 replaced the word pardo with mestizo, that of mixed origins. The census of 1920 did not ask about race, arguing that the answer largely hid the truth. So, yeah, they were right. The answers largely hid the truth. I don't know about that. I don't know what they mean by it, but all they gotta do is ask people their national origins. And again, that's what they classify as Amerindian. So if you want to go with the classify, one half of the classify, and don't want to agree with another half piece of the classify, then you don't agree with none of them. Because you don't got to agree with none of the classifications they bring you. We tell you is ignorant. And then we can tell the people who agree or write these that they're ignorant, and they ain't going to be able to do nothing about that. We tell them that. What they going to tell us? No, we wrong. The application of the term Indian originated by Christopher Columbus. Wrong. Who in his search for, again, we tell you, the Portuguese been calling over here India, and they've been over here before Columbus. They were talking about Al Hind on the map, who in search for India thought he had arrived in the East Indies. And they use a bunch of sources because everybody who want to write about American history and about where the term Indian come from, they always say that he thought he'd been in India. Everybody say that. So every author gonna say that. If the author in 1820, the author in 1890, the author in 1936, the author in 2012, gonna write that. So they gonna use all those sources. So that don't matter if you use all those sources. All I'm in error. Shit went wrong with y'all. Because you use a lot of sources. That's why I tell you, Wikipedia, they like, if they go into court with you and they got a claim against you, you got a strong piece of evidence. You got one strong piece of evidence. They'll try to beat your claim with a million weak, small pieces of evidence to try to beat you, outnumber you. But I got the more sources. It ain't matter if you got 1,000 sources. All those sources saying 1 + 1 is 3. Then you ain't got no source really. You ain't got a strong source. So eventually, those islands came to be known as the West Indies, and a name still used. This led to the blanket term Indies and Indians, Indios, Indians, Indian. But again, all this credit going to him, naming it the West Indies. Not any credit for him. And these terms go back way before a Spanish, a Portuguese, a French, and a Dutch existed. They've been Hind, Al Hind, Hindu. That's why we get Hindustan. In the ancient Urdu as Sind. We know Sind is a large tribe that you got in Africa. The San tribes. All that is the East Indies because they dealing with that ancient term Al Hind. They ain't gonna explain that to you because he Moorish as fuck. But they always gonna jump straight to Columbus. Like, if they've been going to the East Indies, coming out from the Atlantic, they had to hit Brazil to even get around at that time. So discovery already get blown out the water. Also, ain't nothing written in the history that said that Isabel sent him to look for a route to the East Indies, and none of that. They make that up. She sent him to register with Fernando de Lugo Conquer in America and help. But she didn't tell him to do no fighting. But Lugo had an operation running, and his operation was running at the same time. rest of that don't matter. Another term, Zambo. Another term they use in the high Moorish Americans. Caciques are these the Zambo Caciques according to them, Moors of Spain. Even the real Moors of Spain. Back and forth from the Quinto so-called area. And that's why he became New Granada, because Moors like this dressed like this out there running that shit. But they say 5 million today, but not I know overall. 6 million in South America, which is very small. But then again, they just talk about Zambo. That's how they separating us. We just see Pardos, we just see Pretos, we just see Caboclos. Now we seeing Zambos, you see, and all those millions and millions and millions of the Moorish Empire of the West breaking up into different parts of their own self. You see, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. These Moors speaking still to this day. And you see, Rome, under Roman influence mostly. Moorish religions. Everything. The same thing that they demonized Islamic today, they used to do that with African. They used to say, that's African voodoo. And they did with the Moors. When they say tribal religion, they believe that the Amerindian mothers teach them stuff that they don't consider African but consider an origin from here. So they call them the tribal religions mix. But that ain't even, again, that ain't gotta be the case. They might have had no goddamn Amerindian mother. Mother been more just like them and father. Again, this can't come out a little lighter. That's how they gonna classify the child. Ethnic groups. None that's proper. Probably say for Garifuna because basically it's just a tribal name of that tribe. It's Moors of the tribe of the Garifuna. But if you want to use the ethnical group name, then just use Moorish American, like I even use it. That's the proper way you can do that. Especially if you're English speaking, that's how you do it. See, like that, the American mother. And Lobo, another term they used to use, the high Moors. And see, the child get called a Lobo. Negro and Indian makes a Lobo. But again, a lot of that is BS because we got people of her complexion and lighter in our families all the time up here. How the hell she get to be Indian and her mother or her uncle in the same household? Because he's dark, he's an African, and they in the same household. Again, they going by complexion. They trying to name people off that. These people who ain't us are trying to name us. The Mosquito Zambos developed as the descendant of a group of African slaves who revolted in 1640 on a slave ship. They erected at Cape Gracios a Dios on the border between Honduras and Nicaragua. And again, they already been there because they've been known as Tierra de Negros until Columbus come. Well, so before Lugo conquered it, but Columbus named it, registered as Gracios a Dios. Remember, Nicaragua was like saying Nigeria.
Nigeria is another way of saying land of blacks. And Tierra de Negros is Spanish for land of blacks. So in order to escape into the interior, they united with the Mosquito people by the early 18th century. Afro Mosquito people now. It's the Mosquito people, the Mosquito, and the Mosquito people are already in those regions. And they Moors. They said people came to dominate the kingdom. And since they Moors, they want to throw the Afro on top of that because they know you won't figure that out sooner or later. They led warriors on many extensive slave raids to capture slaves for sales to Europeans. Now you see, you're not even Moors. Now you see, the term African, you see that term adds you as a slave, an African slave who come here somehow. They don't know that you could have been here 100,000 years before this event that they finding these people. But when they use terms like African slave, they want to throw you, they want to bring you over here from somewhere else. So you coming in after somebody else land you on. All that's the spell of that term. By using Moorish, they can't that don't send you over nowhere, because Moors everywhere and always was everywhere and in everybody library books as the oldest term used in everybody's history for dark skinned people. So no matter where I at, that ain't sending me no way. Even if I in Africa, I letting them know over there I'm a Moor, and they gonna know what's up. Even in Africa. They led warriors, and you see they script got hold plenty Christians, Europeans, and they put them on their own Almori Fosgos and stuff like that. They got those things set up too. You had the English speaking Moors and the French speaking Moors and the Spanish speaking Moors. Most could understand all that shit. That shit been going down. Another one, Sambo now. We go Zambo to Sambo. And that's where you come from, Indian schools. Let's continue. And you still got them bands like the ones we see in the beginning, do-rags. And they even show you modern day people, they bother still calling these people these mix-up terms and taking people out their national origins and their history disappearing. And again, it ain't just us. Everybody, all the people going under these terms, white, black, and all these other terms, Zambos and mestizos, Latin, Latino, Latina. Now these terms connect to nothing real. You see again, displacement. She gotta be a foreigner on her own land. And again, you just got the scholar gonna say, well, maybe she been here 10,000 years, but she come from Africa on the ship then. I mean, that's fine. She gonna have Africa the same. People over there is highly related to her. The most any other continent on this planet, the people who in Africa, Sub-Saharan, like the TSA, that's true. It was our highest relationships. But you ain't gonna tell me who I is. You're gonna name me. They got their name, African. That's their name. Why you gonna take somebody else's name? You got your own name. Why you need their name? You better identify your damn self.
I was like, I got a bike. My cousin over there got a bike, but I want to claim his bike and not my own. And cause somebody else claimed my bike, and I won't fight for my own bike back. I'd rather just go claim my cousin bike. Why I won't bother my cousin for? He ain't bothering me. What you say? Kununo Championship in Esmeraldas. You see them girl back, they look like they in Seville, Spain. That's why I said it's been a new kingdom of Granada for real. It been the same on both sides before 1492. You know, more in the streets with the technology, with the fucking high science of Seville, with bigger cities over here. And he look, that's like when they first come over here, Cortez and say this shit look more grander than Seville and Cordoba. They've been saying that because they've been exactly the same. Seeing people wearing the same type of outfits and dress, walking around, markets, same shit. And they get the terms like New Spain and New Kingdom of Granada and New Andalusia because of that. And they showing you that right now. You see that culture. You see, people ain't not playing. More stolen power. It might be wrong, but still, so much else out there. We can work with each other. We got a nation, international and national. You know, Quito, right? I think we should know who Quito is on this video. People who watching us. The Moors, the mountain, the Moors in the Andes is like on the other side, the Moors in the Atlas. They've been the Moors in the Andes, and also known later in Rome as Moors in Spain, because it's been Spain territory, and they've been Moors. Esmeralda's right there. And Bracamoros, which means mountain Moors. Got plenty stories of Bracamoros fighting and Moors and other the stories in Moroccan history. They got the Bracamoros as a tribe over here too. That just means mountain Moors. They got Pacamoros group, which means peace Moors. Here's in the peaceful Moors. Alonso de Illescas, African, again, displacement. He been a leader, of course, was perceived as the single most powerful person in Esmeraldas region in colonial northwestern Ecuador in the 1500s. Transito Rosa was a woman of Moorish descent who lived in Guayaquil. During the 17th century, she dedicated herself to the role of midwife, and such with her ability that was given in the hands of silk. And again, these people who writing this, it's not against your best interest, and do not look at this thing like you look at them. So when they use this term, you know, a worldwide propaganda to get rid of, well, basically a Western Moorish Empire, to get rid of that and make this the new world continuous. So in order for that to be true, Moors can't be here. The new world only got Indians here, and there is not dark-skinned people. They from Africa, and they gotta get brought here. That's the story. You can't mix the story. You gotta either go with it or you don't go with it. But you can't mix that. You can't have one and take the other. So we know Moors been on this land, and it knows the land of Moors, kingdoms, up and down this bitch. So we can see where they hide that, and they hide that using the term African and indigenous for other people. Might as well just call them Moors and Turks. Said hands of soap. And with recognition of the contribution of society of the time, she was granted emancipation in 1646. She also brought up several young Moorish women who were born illegitimate. So she been a real Mother Teresa. One of them. Martina Carrillo was a Moorish Ecuadorian activist who defended the rights of Moors and fought against slavery and enslavement. Together with 600 other Moors, 1778 she went to Quito to present her case to the president of the Royal Audience, Spain, Rome, who promised to help them. They were nevertheless punished by a whipping, Carrillo receiving 300 strokes. Today she is honored as a national heroine. So you see, wars against Moors and Christians, and that's the outcome of that war. Modern day, he's still allowing them to use these terms in Rome. And basically some of the same international sways that they did in the United States, they did in all these little countries, Russia and all these communist factions. They go into all the American countries and flip them boy out. And one of the number one ways they would have did that here been man would have been known as the indigenous, and again same thing Spain did to break them up, even though the records show they were bringing people who've been lighter and darker. And man right there, he Afro and proud. And again we see same thing what we call Spanish origins. Moorish. Let me see about the ponchos back there. Oh, the shirt looks like a poncho on the shirt. And again, just like us, still marching for freedom. Same aspects. Wherever there's Rome, we're going to see the same aspects. Wherever there's Moors and Rome, we're vying for this future in our own destinies. And we see right here, they recognizing the foreign minister, which should be a member of the Moorish Science Temple or another Moorish clan, family, independent organizations. Other Moorish so-called maroon towns, kingdoms, they should be giving them the same. That's what we should be having foreign ministers and stuff being recognized amongst each other. Anyway, that shaky on the boy, like man, come and play. If I been there, see, that's why they probably want me and allow me in there, because I asked me, man, why you with it? You ain't in Africa, man. Like, alright, what Africa you at? You at West Africa, right? Oh yeah, okay, you know. You're gonna say that then, stop playing with us. Next thing you know, you're not just to try to shut out our area, and we gone. And then all the bones in the ground is our family bones that they're gonna dig up and desecrate. See, Afro-Argentinos displacing everybody. All the Moors getting displaced for sleight of hand trickery. Juan Martínez Morera, remember I tell you about the Moreras? Been towns in Andalusia called Moreras, Moorish towns. He been a survivor of the Paraguayan War. I mean, I read these before, I believe. Upper class blacks, almost. Porteños. At a dance in 1902. The most widely accepted theory today is that the Moorish population gradually decreased over the generation due to a mixture with so-called whites and to a lesser extent Amerindians, which occurred frequently since the 18th century in the colonial period. So basically they're trying to say you assimilate with other people over here for the most part. That's why the population ain't as much as they fake numbers that's supposed to be here. But the point of the matter is we ain't all up, and they categorize us so much that based off complexion they putting us in groups, but we already been in our own groups and nations with different complexions. So the so-called black population don't increase or decrease. And in a sense, they just based off what they calling people now. One minute they call them the same people black, next minute they call them pardo, next minute now you got a status of white or mulatto or something else. So that's the numbers changing because of name changing. And it accelerated way more in the late 19th century in already independent Argentina with the arrival of a massive white immigration wave from Europe and the Middle East. So you see, and these the people who come and they write about all this, and they displacing the people who already been there, who skin dark. These late immigrants, they'll be the ones who hated the historical societies and writing all these terms that say black and Africans and stuff like that, stuff like this. And that's insane. How the hell you come here behind me and you know about me? Say, which was promoted by the Argentine government, and that's not just Argentine, Brazil, all these places under the guise of Rome and the Jesuits who run them to lighten up the population over time, precisely so that the non-white population become diluted within the white majority through racial mixture. This process was similar to that of the rest of the continent, with different results depending on the volume of immigration and a particular demographic characteristic of each region, and is known as whitening. And there's been so much of a Moorish king empire of the West with Moors everywhere that they did that event, and we still look like a land of Moors everywhere. On top of that, and then where all these people at now, they all calling themselves Americans, Brazilians, Peruvians, natives, and all these other terms that connect them to the soil, while they give you this term that don't connect you to the soil or connect you to nothing. Empanada star run by its owner. Yeah, when I look at these before, because I see the Buenos Aires marketing. The Colegio or college, let me see today, de San Gregorio, where the laws of the Indies were born. You see, that Moorish architect. So you already know. In the book 4 of the 1680 compilation of the laws of the Indies, plans were set forth in details on every facet of creating community, including town planning. And again, these more science now. So we're paying attention to the details of what is been. And it's going to probably end out this series, I believe. I don't got that much left in the series, so the end of the series we're going to basically show you cap terms, what stuff is, more details. You can look into it more. It'll give you some more books to look into to deal with this issue of so-called slavery. And we might as well say race also, but they all go hand in hand. Say those colonists who should want to make a commitment to building a new settlement in the form of manner already prescribed, be it more or less 30 Winkinos, freemen, know that it should be no less than 12% and be worth authorization and territory in accordance to the prescribed conditions. So setting up colonies, reductions, with settlements created by Spanish rulers in Spanish America and the Spanish East Indies, the Philippines. The Spanish relocated forcibly In many cases, indigenous inhabitants of their colonies, Los Indios, into urban settlements modeled on those in Spain. In Portuguese-speaking Latin America, such reduction would call aldeias. You see, they use the old Moorish term for that reduction, for their reduction, the Portuguese side of the game. And Spain, they changed theirs from the Almorifazgo system to the encomienda system. And you see, forcibly moving indigenous people from the land already in America to their colonies in America, not no other continent, not across no ocean. So how they say that about them, that's the same story that you can say. Basically, if you don't read about that, the Magdalena River up and down, or any other river system or landmass on this side, repartimiento, distribution or partition or division, was a colonial labor system imposed upon the indigenous population of Spanish America, the Moors, and the Philippines, the Moros. In concept, it was similar to other tribute labor systems such as the Meta system of the Inca Empire or the Corvée of the ancient regime of France. Though the Pueblos, the Indios, and that's why I say my man named Pablo, the people who've been forced to work on Pueblos. Spanish Pueblos is basically slaves, and they still got their name today, Pablos. The American Indians were drafted work. So they drafted work, but they ain't slave, right? For a cycle of weeks, months, years on farms and mines and workshops and public projects. So, still talking about Moors. In practice, a conquistador, later a Spanish sailor or an official, will be given and supervise a number of indigenous workers who would labor in farms and mines, or in the case of Philippines, might also be assigned to shipyard construction in Manila galleons. And they'll tell you that's what the Spanish used to do on this side against Moors. Same things. And at the same time, they say they can't sail, but they making some of them prisoners to be the ones who sail and row the galley ships. So they could have done them as slaves, they could have done for themselves. So this would come from Hispanic miners or agriculturalists putting in a weekly application for labor with a district magistrate or a special judge who's in charge of the repartimiento labor. So you see this like a system that's still going on, and that's how it's been for the most part. But again, you still had your kidnapping, you still had your murder and your genocide and your wars and stuff like that. But for the most part, these things are systems, and people still live in these type of systems. So it's good to know. So all the out males of the community who turned it was to go were assembled by the Jueces Repartidores, the Amerindian governors of the Pueblo de Indios. So you see, Spain just take the way the old Moors been running this shit, and they just change some of the names of the systems, but they didn't make up nothing new. And given to the Spanish official, or move them to a different area to whatever labor was needed. Again, a cook, a sailor, a barber, blacksmith. Legally, these systems were not allowed to interfere with the American Indians' own survival, with only 7 or 10% of the adult male population allowed to be assigned at a time. These American Indians were paid wages for their labor, which they could then use to pay tribute to the crown. So they had to pay, they get paid and had to pay the tax to the crown with that money. They're crazy. Guinizaro, that's Janissary,
in America was detribalized Native Americans who, through war or payment or ransom, were taken into Hispano or Puebloan villages as indentured servants, shepherds, general laborers, etc. And Santa Fe de New Mexico in New Spain, which is modern day New Mexico, southern Colorado, and other parts of the southwestern United States. So Ganizaro shouldn't be obeyed. Alright, the Ganizaro is a Spanish word borrowed from the Italian word Gianni Zero, which was adopted from the artist Turkic word Yeniseri. This Turkish word referred to slaves who were trained as soldiers of the Ottoman Empire. The Turkish word was also adopted into English as a janissary. The first known use of the Ganizaro in New Mexico was in the early 1660s with the politicians who were accused of mistreating a Ganizaro servant whose mother was Apache Quivira Wichita and the father was Pueblo. So you see, a Pueblo, that's a status. So you see, the term came into general use in 1692 when the Spanish regained control of the New Mexico after Pueblo revolt. So just like we got Mamelucos, now you're seeing Janissaries, showing you this a worldwide empire. You got the same thing on both sides, the language different. The cargo system, also known as the civil religious hierarchy, fiesta or the mayordomia system, as a collection of secular and religious positions held by men or households in rural indigenous communities throughout Central and Southern Mexico and Central America. These revolving officers and cargoes, becoming unpaid responsibility of men who are active in civic life. They typically hold a given post for a term of 1 year. And again, you can just look up the government of Moroccan history and find the same systems. And alternate between civic and religious obligation for year to year. Office holders execute most of the tasks of local government and churches. Individuals who hold cargo are generally obliged to incur the cost of the feasting during the fiestas that honors particular saints. So let's continue. Perhaps the most lasting effect of Moorish influence in Argentina was the tango, which contains some of the features of tangos, meetings in which the Moors assemble to sing and dance. The modern term for, you see it again, everybody else, they don't use the term slave, they just tell you the history. Or when it comes to dark skinned people, they get real upset and start throwing that term in there a million times. That means they projecting. The modern term for tango bar, molonga, has the roots in the Quimbanda language of Angola and the large Afro-Argentine and Afro-Uruguayans, quote-unquote. Contribution is also evidenced in the development of milonga and carrera music. Carrera. The song tradition of the payadores was also associated with Moorish Argentinians, with some scholars. For example, George Reed Andrews argued that it originated among the Afro-Argentine community, while others such as Sullivan B. Paulson viewed it as a continuation of Andalusian traditions, and they were both, because at the same time, before these people have been even around in the scene, Moors been on in Africa, West Coast, and in the eastern parts of the Atlantic, and in Andalusia. So they got the same culture, and that's facts. But it reached the whole Americas because we've been hiding this motherfucker from y'all, the rest of y'all people on this planet for a long time. And ain't nobody come past. That's streets. And come out that streets. You see it. And that's why you only see the European countries by the Atlantic, the Netherlands, the English, the French, the Spain and Portugal, you only see them come first because you have to fight your way through for the most part. Out of all them, but the only people who could have come through in the old days, we let come through Ben Templars because we've been letting them be the go between us and Europe and the Christian nations, and we ain't letting the rest of them rock and just letting you go through your go between. Bring your man, you come and get it. But you know, he ain't never enough for Roman. He wanted to dominate everything, moving and not moving, under his jurisdiction. Defend their right to exist in an increasingly white dominated society, Roman dominated society. Our Roman society, they use white supremacy in their societies. Even if the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire been no more, like Carlos V, he still used that white supremacy system in his jurisdictions. Basically, all the servants he had been what we call so-called white Spanish type people, because, like they say on them letters, then you read them letters of Pizarro and all them boy, they call him their Lord, who look like Isa to them. They had their own Isa. And he had millions of them. It's like King George. The Moors had millions of these people under their service. That's what we call George the Sultan of Rome. Man had plenty of these Europeans under his service. Moors called George the Third, Sultan of Rome. We call him, we need some wild men. That's what you call it. We need some wild men to fight. Said Argentina, as other countries of America, racism related to skin tone dates back to the days of the colonial rule Rome. And the caste system imposed by Spain, the descendants of people from Black Africa, allegedly, occupied a place though lower than the descendants of persons belonging to Aboriginal peoples. We don't look at those caste systems. Some of them you at the bottom, some of them you up at the top, depending on who your wife or your husband been. Kind of different shit. They had black codes. Colonial racism passed into Argentina culture to a certain extent. To a large extent, we talking about. Assumed by certain friends. They always try to make themselves, they ain't the racist ones when they talk like that. I ain't me, but them. You talking about, I can tell by your words, you know you talking about. So it has shown by certain phrases, including in the national literature. See, y'all in your national literature, disputes with the racist tinge were depicted in a famous passage by John Hernandez's book, Martin Fierro, published in 1870, in which the main character duels with a black gaucho. So you're saying the gauchos is the Moors who've been here during the time when they had the wars of the Canaries. They've been called gauchos. And they were saying they were telling Lugo to clear the Canaries of the infidel Canarians. And that's what he would have been, a Moorish person that they call in the gaucho. After insulting his girlfriend, and it started him with the following verse: God made whites, St. Peter made mulattoes, and the devil made blacks, and it's the smut of hell. So he mad, he raised because that man macking on his girl. But you know, that's how you get the truth out of them. When you just be yourself, that'll make them mad. So we see Maria Remedios del Valle, also known as Madre de la Patria, Mother of the Homeland, was an Afro. They call her the Mother of the Homeland, and Wikipedia gonna turn around and call her Afro-Argentine. She is the Argentine. Even the people call her the Mother of the Homeland. Turned soldier who participated in the Argentina War of Independence in the 1700s, sometime in the early 1800s. Wounded in battle, captured, imprisoned, and escaped. She lost her entire family during the war. When the war ended, she returned to Buenos Aires and eventually turned to begging.
Discovered by one of the generals under whom, he basically been racism shit against her after she had been a hero. That's a lot of stories we got. Discovered by one of the generals under whom she had fought, she was approved for a pension, which was paid over the last decade of her life, largely forgotten until the turn of the 21st century, when Argentine historians began including the contribution of black Argentines. So you see, these people the government got records and stuff, and then when they ready or whatever, they gonna reconstruct it and give you the reconstructed version on Black History Month or some shit. She is now widely recognized for her contribution to the independence of her nation. So help with the independence of Argentina, because they damn sure been under Spanish rule. The Argentine legislation declared November 8th as the National Day for Moorish Argentinians. And again, and African culture. You ain't even gonna get that much fucking praise. You're gonna send you overseas mentally. While we beat the Argentinians. See, the mind of Rico were both indigenous and African laborers who used the mine for precious metal. Now the indigenous and African slave laborers. But again, the people who here, the people, the ones who in as dark as they liking, they ain't gonna call African, they gonna call indigenous. The ones who too dark for they like it, they gonna call African. But again, they come in and they do this to the indigenous people, dark skin and all that. You can see right here. In South America, they got whole families and people like this whole family. Different types, phenotype, and complexions. And again, they using the spell, the Afro-Bolivian group called the Tigers of Africa. Still just placing themselves the same thing we doing. When they us the Bolivians and always was. Like my man right here, he ain't care. What they got to say? He know. These type of elders. You see? They could call him an Afro-Bolivian king, but this man called herself the king of Bolivia. And they could try to call a man a ceremonial king, because they got a government out of Bolivia and all that, but he ain't living in that jurisdiction, man, going right back to his own jurisdiction, claim the whole shit. You see, he was a ceremonial king of the North province, crowned 1992, 30 years after the death of the previous king. So you see, when people's doing what they want to do and they supposed to do, and they ain't need recognition from Bolivia government or anybody else. These people come later and sit in seats. They damn recognize they own. They should keep doing that. When he passed, crown another one, keep doing it. That's a seal. Jose de San Martin reviewing in Rancagua the troops who were supposed to campaign in Peru. Moors. The Moorish troops. You see? That look like a Texas flag back there too. Yeah, it was. I'm saying you here. Shirley Bland slavery in 1811 through the Freedom of Wombs law made by Manuel de Sada 7 years after he had read an article announcement in the newspaper for sale 20 to 24-year-old mulatto. Nice condition, good price. The law freed the children of slaves born in Chilean territory, regardless of their parents' condition. The slave trade was banned and slaves were stayed for more than 6 months in Chilean territory were automatically declared freedmen. Thanks to this ban dedicated in 1823, and then you start seeing multiple countries doing the same thing in the same year, then Operation Network. 1823 is a year that I started to see a lot when they come with this ban of slavery across the continent. Chile became the second country in America to prohibit slavery after Haiti. The abolishment freed close to 5,000 slaves that lived in the country. Despite the general emancipation of so-called black slaves in Chile, slavery continued along the Pacific coast of South America throughout the 19th century as Peruvian slave traders, Moors, and kidnapped part of the Asians. So again, you see on the other side, you see sea walls, captives, and slavery. But all these people who looking like the people from over there, they won't call themselves Native Americans over here. We got the same stories over there on that side of the coast too. So you could come from Asia. You got them same stories, but they don't teach us that. On that Pacific coast, you see them that Peruvian slave dealers, they got ships and shit too. And Peru has been doing business with the Moors on the Asian side. The Pacific been out seas too. I don't know what people thinking. And the dance of the Zama Cueca. There's some old Moorish shit right there for their ass. They start to see these customs like, damn, they gotta really go hard on putting Afro on these people. Because it's nobody out here looking right more and more. In the early 1800s, the dance was called Zamba, and then Zama Cueca, which Africanists considered who they call it Africanists? The Africanists consider the origin of the sailor and other dances such as the Muzamala and Cueca and the dance of the handkerchief. So they don't like the fact that people call everything African. That's dumb. when they want to benefit them, they like that. But when it's something that somebody say, hold up, this great invention been made by an African. I mean, if it ain't on that continent, then the people who on that other continent, they're gonna get mad. But again, that's why we just say Moorish. It ain't gonna matter then. If I Mooricize it because Moors in America, and not by way of Europeans bringing them here in the history books. So they get mad, call people Africanists, and we connect things to Africa, but we ain't really connecting these things to Africa. We connecting it to Moorish people and their histories, no matter where they at on the planet. Which include that whole continent of Africa. When I say Moorish, I include that whole continent of Africa. I don't know what you think when you say that. What he said at the beginning, we ain't honoring our Africanism. But when I say Moorish, definitely a land of Moors is that continent of Africa. Probably the most Moors in the world is in that continent. Same dance. Puerto Rico. I got that turban on. Another etymology analysis indicate that we'll go back to musical form belonging to the gypsy. I tell you earlier, a gyptus. They call them gypsy, Egyptian, Andalusian tradition brought by the Spaniards to Chile. Always brought by the Spaniards because it got to be a new world. It had to been a world of wild Indians before they come and teach everybody stuff. If you they going off that Columbus discovers America theory in their mind, so they put stuff like that brought by the Spaniards, which would have its antecedents in the Moorish element of the Zambra. So the Spanish ain't even come up with the shit. They from the Hispanic Arabic Zamra. This was the classical Arabic Zamar, Tocata. Although possible, it is important to know that other dances such as the Zamba in Bolivia and the Samba in Brazil have their origins in the Kimbudu or the Kikongo language.
You see, Key Congo. Juan Beltran de Magana. You see, he been a conquistador in Chile, a Moorish. And these are Moors who can sail and who playing in the game. They in the affairs of men at this time. So another one, participate in expedition with Almagro. Almagro, we talked about him a little earlier. Some people you're gonna look up. You see, so-called African slave was forced to work in the gold mines and the sugar cane plantation, the cattle ranches, and the large haciendas. So you see now when the old history and they saying all the natives began put on these haciendas and working the gold and silver mine, they was talking about these Moors. You can go to another page now. They telling you that right here. They telling you that shit. Haciendas, the mines. African workers pioneered the extraction of the alluvial gold deposits and the growing of sugarcane in the areas. So you see, this land got most of the sugarcane plantations and the gold deposits and shit in the areas that correspond to modern day Coco, Antioquia, the ancient Cauca, Valle de Cauca, and Narino in western Colombia. Magdalena River. And again, they been going into Africa, which is other parts that they've been still conquering. When Lugo come over here and Columbus come behind and they named Gracias de Dios, and they've been going to the neighboring tribe. They ain't going far. Gracias de Dios, so I pay somewhere. That Cologne right there, name right there. Showing us the earliest spots. So we got Gracias de Dios and Veragua. Veragua is the mine. He finally find a mine Castillo de Oro named it Veragua. No, that's the one, but the point of the matter is the Africa they've been talking about in the wars they've been having right here with the Moors and the Portuguese, and right here, and the Moors who've been right here been known as Mandinka in books. That's why I say a lot of us use that term Mandinka in this, and they think come from Africa like over there instead of Africa over here, and areas right here again up and down the Magdalena. You got the moles of the mountains. So yeah, plenty of action, plenty of Moors, and you see even to this day, it still mess with you. The UNODOC, the UNODOC reported 66% of the alluvial gold is illegally mined, still stealing. But 42% of these illegal activities directly affecting that so-called Afro-Colombian communities. We still live on top of that gold, and they still come and take action from under your feet. And that's why they love to call you Afro-Colombians, because they want Colombia. But they ain't gonna be able to move people. They ain't never could have moved us. No matter how much time you write Afro-dash, we ain't gonna be here. You ain't gonna move the old lady off the porch. I know that. You might convict a few of us and shame us back over there like you're trying to do, but you ain't shaming that old lady. Like she said, she Cherokee and she sit on that porch. So let's stop right there. That's gonna be too long, so let's catch you next time. Peace.